welcome to today's second class. So in today's second class, we are going to be summarizing or concluding the topic of series and sequence. So series and sequence, I said, this is a topic for grade 11, which is also important for your exam because it always comes in both paper 1 and paper 2. So in our first video or in our first class, we looked at arithmetic progression, the type of series and sequence you will find in paper 1. In our second class, we are going to look at geometric progression, the type of series and sequence which you will find in paper 2. This is a compulsory question. Whether you like it or not, you have to solve it. Yeah. And it is 7 marks. So these are free 7 marks. Yeah. So before we solve these 3 questions, there is something, or you need to understand at least something about geometric progression, because you can't just start solving without knowing the formula and how to apply it. Yeah. So as I said, we said that we are looking at geometric progression, also known as GP. So this is a type of arithmetic, or this is a type of sequence of numbers where you multiply the same number each time. So what am I saying? So GP, you are multiplying the same number each time. So an example of a sequence where we keep on multiplying the same number to have different result is this one. We can have 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. Just like that. So if you have observed this sequence, we keep on multiplying by what? By 2. So the difference between these numbers is what is known as the common difference, or the common ratio. So the common difference is for what? Arithmetic progression. Then when we are dealing with geometric progression, we say that the difference is known as the common ratio, represented by R. So how do we find now the common ratio? Since we have understood that the common ratio, this is the number which is constant, it does not change, and we use it to multiply to get numbers in a sequence. So if you remember, I told you that when we are calculating the common difference in AP, we were subtracting the second term minus the first term. But in this case, since we are multiplying, for us to find the common ratio, we have to divide. So here is a simple trick which will help you to remember. So whenever you hear AP, just know that the common difference is found by what? Subtracting. Then the common ratio is found by what? Dividing. That's it, the first step. So the common ratio can be found by dividing the second term divided by the first term, or the third term divided by the second term, or the fourth term divided by the third term. So it can keep on going depending on the terms you have been given. So this is the first thing you need to understand when you are looking at geometric progression. Then the second thing which you need to understand is now the nth term formula, or the nth formula. So the formula for GP is Tn ARn minus 1. Yeah. So the reason I didn't explain the other terms is because I've basically explained them in the first video on AP. We say that A represents the first term and N represents the position of the term we are calculating. So these are the few basics which you need to understand when you're looking at GP. Yeah, and remember this formula is given at the cover page, but the formula for the common ratio, you have to remember it. So with that in mind, we are going to try and solve 3 questions which we have here for paper 2. And remember, I said that each question carries 7 marks. So these are 7 marks we are solving here. So you need to pay attention for you to get marks, because in mathematics paper 2, most marks are in section A, although most people rush for section B because those questions you have to choose, but most marks are in section A because section A has 52 marks. You should keep that in mind. Just section A alone you can pass math, but just section B alone you can't pass math. So you need to be strategizing as you are solving math. Okay, so the question is saying for the geometric progression 189, 63, 21, find the common ratio. So I told you how to find the common ratio. So how can we find the common ratio? So we say that you have to divide the second term divided by the first term. So when we divide the second term, which is 63, divided by 189, we are having 1 over 3 as our common ratio. Then for those of you that don't like fraction, you can just say 63 divided by 189, you get what? 0.333. Remember, this is the paper 2. You leave your answer to 3 significant figures. So you say 0.333 is our common ratio. So meaning here we have calculated our first question, which was requiring us to calculate the common ratio. Then the second question is saying find the fifth term. So how can we find the fifth term? So the way we find the fifth term, you say the fifth term is given by AR n minus 1. So we say that the first term is what? 189. Then our common ratio is this one, 0.33. So you say 0.333. Then here you say, what is our n? We are calculating the fifth term. So meaning our n is 5 minus 1. Then you say 189 multiplied by 0.333. 5 minus 1, we have what? 4. Then here you can punch on your calculator. Remember, don't multiply 189 with this. First, you need to find this. So you say 189 times 0.333 to the power 4. We have 0. So we have 0.01296. Okay, you can end there. Then this number you say times 189 to get our answer. So our fifth term is 2.32. 3 significant figures. So always remember 3 significant figures. Then our final question, which is saying the sum to infinity. Yeah. So here is a trick which will help you to get most of this question correct. So whenever you see a question at the end, it has sum to infinity. Just to know that your common ratio is less than 1. So whenever you see a question as sum to infinity, then you found out that your common ratio is greater than 1, just know that you have made a mistake somewhere. So whenever you see sum to infinity, whatever should come into your mind is that the common ratio is less than 1. Yeah. So now the formula for sum to infinity is this. So sum to infinity given by the first term 1 minus the common ratio. So remember, always the common ratio should be less than 1. Why? Because you can find that if your common ratio is above 1, you have a negative denominator here. Yeah, which we do not want. So always remember. Then our first term is 189. 1 minus our common ratio, which is 0.333. So you have 189 divided by 1 minus 0.33. We have 0.67. So you have 0.67. Then when you divide 189 divided by 0.67, you have your answer to be 282 as your sum to infinity. Remember, 3 significant figures, or in short, 3 numbers. Yeah. The reason I put 4 numbers here is because 0 is not significant if it is at the first. Okay, so moving on to our second question, which is saying for the geometric progression, 60, 30, 15, find the 60th term. So how you find the 60th term is simple. I've showed you in the first question. So be sure to pause the video and try solving part A. I'll post the answers at the end of this video. So here I'm going to solve B, which is saying find the geometric mean of 15 and 3.75. So the formula for the geometric mean is B is equals to the square root of A, C. So what do they mean when you say the geometric mean? So they are asking you to calculate they're asking you to calculate the number between 15 and what? 375. Yeah. 15 and 375. So you say A is what? 15 times 375. So we have 15 times 375. We have the square root of 5,625, which is 75 as your answer. Yeah. So again, if you see sum to infinity, just know that your common ratio is less than 1. So these two questions, I've left them on purpose for you to try to what? So that you can build up momentum towards your exam. Then the final question, which is a bit tricky, but it's the most simple one among all. So why do I say so? Because in this question, you have been given the formula which you are going to be using to solve. So you say part A is saying find the first 3 terms. So we are going to find the first 3 terms using the formula. So you say Tn, our formula we have been given is this one, not the normal one, because the question is saying the nth term of a geometric progression is given by this. So meaning this is the formula they used. So you are going to copy it. 180 half to the power n. Then you say if we want to find our first term, we are going to replace n with 1, because we said that n represents the what? The position. So you say 180, here you put what? 1 to find our first term. So you say 180 times 0.5, which is half. So our first term is 90. So here you put 1. Again, you move on. Our second term is 180. Here now you put what? 2. So now you say 1 divided by 2, or 1 divided by 2 to the power 2, we have what? 0.25 times 180, we have what? 45 as our second term. Then our third term, you say again 180, 1 over 2 to the power 3. So again you do the same, 1 divided by 2 to the power 3 times 180. We have 22.5. So this is our first term, this is our second term, and this is our third term. So at the end you can say, therefore we have 90, 45, 22.5. Then our second question is saying find the common ratio. So how do you find the common ratio? Again, I said for you to calculate the common ratio, you just say the second term divided by the first term. So our second term is 45, our first term is 90. So if you say 45 divided by 90, you find that your common ratio is 0.5. Yeah, which is less than 1. And again, for the sum to infinity, you can try it at your own free time. So the answers to these remaining questions, I'll add them at the end of the video. So be sure to check out the end of the video if you got the question correct. Then this is where our class ends. Be sure to subscribe, comment if you have any question on the topic, and share the video if it was helpful to you so that it can also help your friends. Yeah. And also subscribe so that you don't miss out our future videos on more topics in math, English, biology, chemistry, and other subjects.